Hello, and thank you for watching The Righteous Kitchen, a cooking and baking blog found at www.therighteouskitchen.blogspot.com. I want to share with you a recipe for perfect cornbread. Now, I've been using this recipe for about 35 years. I found it in a cookbook from Better Homes and Gardens. Okay, and we're going to start, and I'm going to just walk you through the whole process here. It uses 1 cup of all-purpose flour. It's important to measure correctly your flour, so just spoon it in. You're letting the air kind of aerate the flour into the measuring cup. So spoon it in and then level it off with a knife. So there's 1 cup flour. And we're going to do the same thing with the cornmeal. All right, so we've got the cornmeal. Just spoon it in. This is yellow cornmeal. It's not a self-rising flour or a self-rising, it's just all-purpose flour and yellow cornmeal. So I put a little bit more, and then I'll come back and level it. And that's how you make sure your ingredients are measured correctly. All right, and now it has 4 teaspoons of baking powder. I just scoop in there and level it off. Okay. And it has 3/4 of a teaspoon salt. You want to measure your salt not over your bowl of ingredients in case you put too much. So I just do that and then just shake it, or you could just do that. But see how there's excess? There's the salt. So that takes care of the dry ingredients, so I just whisk them together. Oh, let me say something real quick. If you want a true southern cornbread, you don't put any sugar. But I like a little bit of sugar. A tablespoon is plenty. Just enough to kind of give it a little character, let's say. But I know there's a lot of debate. Southerners do not like sugar. I don't have a horse in that race, so I don't really care. I like a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of sugar. The recipe calls for 1/4 a cup. I don't like mine that sweet. So just a little bit. Now we have 1/4 cup of shortening. I use Crisco. I'm not a fan of the off-brand shortening. That's Crisco. And then we have 2 eggs. I like to crack my eggs into a bowl, and that way I can make sure I don't have any shell. And I did just get a shell, so I'm going to break off a piece of this and try to scoop the shell out. Let me put my glasses on so I could see that shell. go. Just use a shell and that'll give it something to grab hold of. So there's one egg. And two. Now I'll clean up my egg mess that I just made. You always want to wash down the area after you've cooked with eggs so you don't get sick. Okay. And our last ingredient is going to be 1 cup buttermilk. Now you can make your own buttermilk. It's just as putting vinegar or lemon juice into milk and letting it thicken up. I don't really care for that. I'd rather just use buttermilk because I like the thickness of it. Now this recipe doesn't even call for buttermilk. It calls for milk. But I found if you use buttermilk, it gives it a lighter texture. So I do recommend buttermilk, real buttermilk in this recipe. So now we're just going to mix it up. Now you don't have to get every little lump of that shortening out. Just get the eggs and the milk incorporated. And today, since I'm doing a demonstration, I thought that I would bake the cornbread in my cast iron pan. Now I am a collector of cast iron. I like Wagner. This is a Wagner ware number 10. And I also like Griswold. I take really good care of my pans. I don't like a carbon buildup in a junky pan. So the way to clean these after baking is you scrub them with hot water, put them in the stove or the oven to dry, and then give them a thin buff with Crisco. So if I was going to store it, I would give it a thin layer of Crisco and then try to remove it all. And that would leave just a tiny bit of oil on there to prevent it from rusting. Now since I'm actually going to bake with this, I'm going to put a little bit more. And that'll serve as our non-stick coating for the cornbread. And I do like to use an offset spatula to spread this mixture in the pan. It's a little bit easier to get in there with the offset spatula. Now this is a number 10 pan. This recipe also will work great in a number 8 pan. It'll give it a little bit thicker piece of cornbread. So that's it. The oven has been preheated to 425, and this is going to bake for about 20 minutes. It'll be nice and brown on top. I've got a pan of cornbread. I just made a batch and I'm making cornbread croutons for a stuffing recipe. But here we go. We're putting it in 425 in the center rack, and we'll come back and check on it in about 20 minutes. Okay, it's been about 25 minutes. And I want to check on the cornbread. Okay, it's starting to brown nicely on the top. So what I'm going to do is give it a little brush of butter. And that's going to help it to brown even more. I'll put this back in the oven for probably about another 5 minutes or so. Then I rotated the pan also. It looked like it needed to be rotated. Okay, this has been going for about a half an hour now, 25 minutes to a half an hour. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring it out. And there we go. So we have a really nice golden top on our cornbread. And I'll go ahead and cut a slice for you. This knife is a little bit too fat to get that out perfectly, but you get the idea. And we'll put some butter on the top and let that melt. So there you have it. Perfect cornbread, made even more perfect by using buttermilk and reducing the amount of sugar that went into it. A very good recipe. And then I also made a batch earlier, cubed it up and let it dry out a little bit in the oven, toasted it up a bit, and then this will be used in my turkey dressing recipe. So I always use it for the turkey dressing or just for good cornbread. So there you have it. Perfect, more perfect cornbread. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. I have a cooking blog at www.therighteouskitchen.blogspot.com. You could also find me at The Righteous Kitchen on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.